Excellent. This is the Whaley number 4. Whaley snare exercise number 4 looks like this. That's the first measure of it. All right. I'm going to play this at a reasonable tempo. This is not performance tempo, which says quarter note between 104 and 116. This will be at quarter note equals 80. That way, we can do it nice and slow and you have something to practice with. So what this says at the beginning, note the difference between the two types of accents in this study. Accents must be played in relation to the dynamic level in which they occur. So we've talked about accents in a rudimental type of performance where there's accents and there's taps. Okay, these would be taps, really low, level 1. Level 4 would be the accent. Okay? In relation to the dynamic means, this is more like concert music. Concert music, you don't hear accents like that. They tend to pop out of the dynamic. So if I'm playing piano and I have accents at piano, it might sound like this. Right? So the accents aren't so extreme as you might see in marching percussion or rudimental drumming. Okay, so this is very much more concert-based. So we have fortissimo, which is our loudest dynamic, and we have piano. So which is our softest, and everything in between. And my goal is to really execute every time I come to a fortissimo, it's always the same volume. Every time I come to a piano, hopefully it's always the same volume as well, and anywhere in between. The two accents they're talking about are the standard dynamic accent, which looks like kind of like a carrot or accent Pac-Man that we talk about, which is just something that's going to jump out of the dynamic level you're in. Just like I explained with pianos here, accents just coming out. If I'm at forte, accents coming out of that. Now, the other accent you see that's like this, it means marcato. It's just Italian jargon. So marcato, to mark and stamp that note. It is an accent, but there's a little bit more weight behind it. I would say you don't see it as much in percussion music necessarily for snare drum. I mean, you see it, but if you were to hear it, listening for it, if you were playing like a trumpet, you would probably really notice. Like if I played the first line, bum, 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 ba da 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 bum. That's a standard steady melody. Now if I put a regular accent on the end of that, bum, 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 ba da 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 bum, 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 ba da 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 bum. You know, maybe a little bit there. A marcato might sound like this. Bum, 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 ba da 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 bum, 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 ba da 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 bum. You know, where it's got a little bit more weight, there's a little bit more attitude behind it. So on a snare drum, it's a little harder to say, to notice, but just think of it having a little bit more weight, a little bit more kind of grease behind it, if you will, for lack of a better description. I'm sure I'll hear about that. So I'm going to play this at tempo 80 so you can hear a version of it. Just do your best to pay attention to all the dynamics as best you can. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, here we go. So that's a good, hopefully you notice an illustration, a good description, illustration, example, whatever you want to say. Good example of the difference between marcato and regular accents. Like I said, the difference is small. There's a long stint. Like remember, anytime you see, like at this 2/4 right here, let's see if I can show you. 2/4 on 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth line down. This 2/4 has a piano under it. That piano goes all the way down to that mezzo forte. So you play a good little while, and then likewise after the mezzo forte goes all the way to the forte. So you have a good length of time where you don't change dynamic at all. So everything needs to stay and remain super even.